English wrong your entire life. While you're memorizing grammar rules and vocabulary lists, fluent speakers are using completely different techniques that take just 15 minutes a day. Today, we're breaking down daily English speaking practice and the practical strategies that actually work. You'll discover 10 research-backed techniques that transform how you practice, understand why consistency beats intensity every time, and walk away with a 15-minute daily routine you can start immediately. Let me bring in someone who spent years studying what actually moves the needle for English learners. So tell me, what's the biggest mistake people make when trying to improve their speaking?
The biggest mistake is thinking you need hours of practice to make progress. According to Oxford Spoken English research, just 15 minutes of concentrated daily practice can dramatically improve your speaking skills. What really matters is consistency, not duration.
Wait, just 15 minutes? That seems almost too good to be true.
I know it sounds counterintuitive, but think about it this way. When kids learn their native language, they don't sit down for 3-hour study sessions. They listen, then speak, then read, then write. It's constant, natural exposure in small doses.
That makes sense. So what does effective daily practice actually look like?
Well, there are 10 powerful techniques that research shows actually work. The first one is called shadow speaking, and it's probably the most effective technique for improving pronunciation and natural speech patterns.
Shadow speaking? What exactly is that?
You choose content like TED Talks or podcasts with clear speech, listen to a short segment of 10 to 30 seconds, then speak along trying to match the pronunciation, stress, and intonation. Then you repeat it without the audio.
So you're basically mimicking native speakers. That's interesting because it reminds me of how musicians practice. They don't just read sheet music, they play along with recordings to internalize rhythm and timing.
Exactly. And the key is to start with slower speech and gradually increase speed. Focus on chunks of language rather than individual words, and practice daily with just 5 to 10 minute segments.
What's the second technique?
The self-talk technique. This is where you narrate your day in English. You're speaking to yourself about simple things like how you feel, what you're doing, what your plans are.
So instead of thinking in your native language, you're forcing yourself to think in English?
Precisely. And here's what's brilliant about this. It creates valuable practice opportunities even when you're alone. No pressure, no judgment, just natural language flow.
That's actually genius. What about when you do want to practice with other people?
That's where structured speaking practice with language partners comes in. According to Preply research, conversation practice with native speakers is the most powerful method for understanding the language.
But how do you find these language partners?
There are apps like HelloTalk that connect you directly with native English speakers. You can chat, send voice messages, and they have built-in correction tools. It's like having a conversation partner in your pocket.
What about for people who are too shy or nervous to talk to strangers right away?
Perfect question. That's where the voice recording method comes in. You record yourself speaking, then listen back to identify areas for improvement. It's like being your own teacher.
I imagine that could be pretty eye-opening. What do people usually discover when they hear themselves?
They notice pronunciation issues they never realized they had, pacing problems, or places where they're not being clear. The beauty is you can practice the same segment multiple times until you get it right.
What's next on the list?
Role-playing scenarios. This is where you practice real-life situations like job interviews, ordering food, or making appointments. The language is practical and immediately useful.
So you're not just learning English, you're learning how to use English in situations you'll actually encounter.
Exactly. And then there's vocabulary integration, where you take 3 to 5 new words you've learned recently and use them in your own sentences out loud. This reinforces new vocabulary in a speaking context.
That makes so much sense. Instead of just memorizing definitions, you're actually using the words.
Right. And pronunciation drills are crucial too. Apps like Elsa Speak use AI technology to analyze your speech patterns and provide detailed feedback on pronunciation accuracy.
It's fascinating that apps now use AI for conversation mode. We're basically getting personalized tutoring without the human judgment factor.
Absolutely. Duolingo's new conversation mode in 2026 lets you hold mini dialogues with a virtual assistant that corrects pronunciation and grammar in real time. It's perfect for shy learners.
What are the other techniques on your list?
The question challenge, where you practice spontaneous speaking by answering simple questions out loud. Public speaking practice for building confidence. And immersive media engagement, where you actively respond to what you're watching or listening to.
So you've got 10 techniques. How do you actually structure this into a daily routine?
Here's where that 15-minute structure comes in. Minutes 1 to 3 are warm-up with self-talk. Minutes 4 to 7, repeat after a native speaker. Minutes 8 to 10, vocabulary in action.
And the final minutes?
Minutes 11 to 13, answer a question aloud for spontaneous speaking practice. Minutes 14 to 15, recap and reflect on what you practiced. The whole thing is designed to be sustainable.
What makes this approach different from traditional language learning?
Traditional methods focus on grammar rules and vocabulary lists. This approach focuses on actual communication. According to the National Centre on Improving Literacy, effective instruction should be explicit, systematic, and differentiated for students' language needs.
And it sounds like these techniques address real-world speaking challenges.
Exactly. The page content shows that talking about daily routines is one of the most common and useful topics in everyday communication. These techniques help you practice basic sentence structure and present tense naturally.
What about people who feel like they don't have time for even 15 minutes?
That's the beauty of techniques like self-talk. You can practice while making breakfast, walking to work, or doing chores. You're not adding time to your day, you're using time you already have.
So it's about integrating practice into your existing routine rather than creating a separate study time.
Precisely. And the research shows that making English a part of your daily life is the trick to practicing these 4 basic language skills regularly: listening, speaking, reading, and writing.
What about tracking progress? How do you know if these techniques are actually working?
Great question. You can keep a speaking journal where you write what you said today and what you want to improve tomorrow. Record your answers to questions and listen back to notice mistakes and improvements.
And I imagine the apps provide some tracking too?
Absolutely. Elsa Speak provides detailed pronunciation feedback with color-coded analysis and progress tracking with skill assessments. Duolingo gamifies the process with streaks and achievements.
What's the biggest mindset shift people need to make?
Stop thinking you need to be perfect before you start speaking. The research consistently shows that consistent practice and exposure to the language in real-life contexts are key to improving speaking skills.
So it's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly. And here's something counterintuitive. The most effective English practice happens when you're alone. Self-talk and narrating your day creates zero-pressure opportunities to build fluency naturally.
That's such an important point. You don't need a classroom or expensive tutoring to get started.
Right. According to the page content, you no longer need to live in an English-speaking country to sound like a confident speaker. All you need is your smartphone and the right apps.
What would you say to someone who's tried to improve their English before but got frustrated and gave up?
I'd tell them that just 15 minutes of daily practice can be more powerful than hours of sporadic study. Consistency beats intensity every single time. Start small, be patient with yourself, and focus on communication over perfection.
And the techniques we've discussed make it actually enjoyable rather than feeling like work.
Absolutely. When you're shadow speaking to a TED Talk about something you're interested in, or role-playing a scenario you might actually encounter, it doesn't feel like studying. It feels like preparation for real life.
So when you step back from everything we've covered, what's the key takeaway for our listeners?
The key is that effective English-speaking practice isn't about memorizing rules or spending hours with textbooks. It's about consistent, practical techniques that mirror how we naturally acquire language.
And these 10 techniques give people a complete toolkit they can start using immediately.
Exactly. Whether you're using shadow speaking to improve pronunciation, self-talk to build confidence, or apps like HelloTalk to practice with native speakers, you're building real communication skills.
The 15-minute daily routine makes it sustainable, and the variety keeps it interesting.
Right. And remember, the research shows that people who engage with these practical techniques show improved confidence in professional communication contexts. This isn't just about speaking better English, it's about opening doors.
Here's what I want you to do. Pick one technique we discussed today and try it for just 1 week. Start with shadow speaking if you want to work on pronunciation, or self-talk if you want to build confidence.
Set a timer for 15 minutes, follow that simple routine we outlined, and track your progress. Remember, you've been practicing English wrong your entire life, but now you know the techniques that actually work.